Alright, guys, the MCU goes on even more. We have, we had the first Captain America movie was pretty good. First Captain America movie, honestly pretty good. My favorite Captain America movie, obviously, you guys know this. Pretty good, though. So, when they announced Captain America the Winter Soldier, I was kind of like, it's gonna be set in modern day, and I'm not sure if I like that. I like the period piece element of the first movie, which is one of the reasons why it is my favorite Captain America movie, because it's a period piece. This movie takes place in modern day, so how are they gonna make it, work on the same level as the first movie? Here's how. Captain America the Winter Soldier picks up a little while after the Avengers, and it tells the story of Captain America. He is living in a post-alien invasion society that now everyone knows that this stuff happens and it's real, and the world is a lot more vulnerable because of it. And so you have Captain America working with S.H.I.E.L.D. trying to, just keep the world safe. And then some stuff happens. Chris Evans, guys, is great as Captain America. It is really cool to see him adjust to the modern world post-Avengers, because again, I really love the period piece elements of Captain America, the first Avenger, but with Winter Soldier, we get to see him in an interesting position. He has to be Captain America and save the world and do all this stuff, while also dealing with the fact that he is not in his time anymore. He is in a time that is way more advanced than he is used to. And while we don't really get to see a ton of that in the movie, we do get to see some of it. He still likes to listen to old music from the 40s. He visits Peggy Carter, who's now really old, and he goes to, he checks out the Captain America Museum and sees all the old stuff that reminds him of the good old days of 1942. If you could call those the good old days. But you get what I mean, though. And it was really cool to see his character progress in that way, because he really doesn't have anyone anymore. He grew up in the 30s and 40s, so he had probably at least a couple of friends then. He had Agent Carter, who he fell in love with. He had Howard Stark. They were kind of friends. Bucky, obviously. And now he's in this modern day, and he just missed out on so much, and he doesn't really have anyone. And that was just an interesting place to put Captain America. The only friends he has are Agent Romanoff and Nick Fury. And even then, they're more work colleagues than friends. But, speaking of Agent Romanoff, Scarlett Johansson in this movie is actually really good as Black Widow. She has a very real characterization in this movie compared to Iron Man 2 and the first Avengers movie. And I really appreciated that, because in the other movies she didn't really have a character. We got a little bit of hints at her past in the first Avengers movie, but still she didn't really have a character. And in this movie, she definitely does. She has a bit of a back and forth with Captain America. We get to see a little bit more of her skill with espionage and that kind of thing. And I just thought her character was actually interesting in this movie, compared to not being all that interesting in the other movies. And then we have Anthony Mackie, who is a great... I'll go as far as to say amazing addition to the MCU as Falcon. He adds a layer to Steve Rogers' character because he connects with him on the level of the fact that they both have a shared experience in the military. And he also adds an extra element of fun and humor into the movie without going too far overboard. He's not a straight-up comedian. He's just a funny, sarcastic kind of guy, so he adds that sort of humor to the movie. And then, obviously, Samuel L. Jackson is great. He gets a lot more to do in this movie than in previous movies, and a real chance to shine as Nick Fury. And I really liked his character. There's something that happens to his character in this movie that I didn't like, but I mean, yeah. What are you really gonna do, you know? And then you have Robert Redford, who surprisingly steals the show as Alexander Pierce. It's not surprising that Redford is good. He's a great actor, like an Oscar caliber actor. It's just surprising that he's even in a Marvel movie to begin with, and the fact that he steals the movie from everyone else that's on screen in such a kind of small part. And this movie is just an amazing prime example of exactly how Marvel movies should be. There is humor in this movie. Quite a lot of it. And it can be very funny. But when the serious things start happening, the movie really does focus up and get serious, making the stakes seem a little more real. Compared to movies like the Iron Man movies or the Avengers movies, where even when there's a huge, like, battle going on, where, like, the stakes should be high, you still have the heroes kind of cracking jokes, making quips, and having this rapport, which, don't get me wrong, I love that the Avengers have a good rapport and that they are able to share jokes with each other, but when you're going through this thing that you're trying to save the world from completely being destroyed, maybe save the jokes for later. This movie is really good at that. This movie has a ton of jokes. A lot of them work. A lot of them are great. But it's pretty serious, too. And it really does work. And I think that if all the Marvel movies were like this, they would probably be a lot better. Like, all the Marvel movies are pretty great. I just wish they were a little more serious at times. But I do have one huge complaint with this movie. There is a death in the movie, and it's a pretty big one. And then in the exact same movie, like maybe 20 minutes later, they go back on it and completely just change it, and it's kind of stupid, and I didn't really like that. It's not a huge deal. Doesn't really detract from the movie at all. It just is something that kind of annoys me every time I watch it. I thought the twists in this movie are really great. The first one is more minor, but it's still pretty well. It's expected. If you know anything about comics, you know exactly what the twist is. It involves the titular Winter Soldier, who, by the way, I won't say who plays him, but is played very well. And then the second twist is a much larger scale one, which, again, I won't spoil, because I would say this is the one movie where, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where if you haven't seen it and you haven't heard anything about it, don't read into it at all. Just watch it without spoiling anything. But there's a big reveal in the movie that really shakes up the MCU and made for a very fun amount of surprise and uncertainty to the movie. And that's the biggest praise I can give this movie. It is uncertain. I mean, yeah, some of the Marvel movies, again, are kind of predictable. But that's because, again, with the jokes, the stakes don't feel as real, and so, you know, it is kind of predictable. This movie, after the big reveal, everything kind of feels up in the air, and like anything could happen, and anyone could just, you know, die or something. And so that made this movie really fun for me, in a way, because it's like, oh, at any moment, Captain America could just die. The Falcon could just die. Black Widow could die. The Winter Soldier could die. Nick Fury could die. Anyone could die. And that is great. I love it when movies actually give you real stakes that you can feel. Again, I will say this movie, and this isn't a problem with the movie, it's a problem I kind of have with the cinematic universe in general. When this movie leaves the MCU in a very different place than it is when you pick up in Age of Ultron, it's in a different place, kind of, and it does feel a little weird just because we don't really get a story in between that kind of ties everything together and lets us know what's going on now. So it does feel weird. It's not an issue that I have with either movie. Both movies on their own are really good. It's just an observation that I had that this movie kind of leaves us in a really kind of a dark place, and then Age of Ultron kind of just ditches that and picks up with its story, which, again, is not a problem with either movie. It's just a problem kind of with the cinematic universe in general. But the action is very well done. The hits feel very real and brutal. It's well choreographed and shot. Each character has a different fighting style that makes them feel more distinct. The direction as a whole is amazing. Guys, this is just a really great addition to the MCU and one of the best solo Marvel movies, and if you have not seen it, definitely check it out. I'm going to give Captain America the Winter Soldier an A+. Thank you guys for watching this video. Let me know in the comments what you think of Captain America the Winter Soldier if you've seen it. Check out the link to our Patreon page in the description. Make a contribution if you would like. Thanks for watching.